How's everybody doing? I'm Eddie Muller, and today on Noir Alley, I bring you a sad saga of thwarted ambition. That's not the theme of the movie we're showing. It's the behind-the-scenes story of the film's creation. Today we're showing The Woman on the Beach, released by RKO in 1947. During pre-production on the film in early 1946, the studio decided to capitalize on the surprising comeback of actress Joan Bennett. The one-time 30s ingenue who had just done two pictures back-to-back with director Fritz Lang. 1944's The Woman in the Window and Scarlet Street, released the following year, were critical and popular successes, and they revived Bennett's career by casting her as a sultry, mysterious femme fatale. And she'd also formed a production company with Lang and her husband, producer Walter Wanger. So while Lang and Wanger looked for suitable properties for their next project, RKO stepped in and offered Bennett the starring role in a picture to be called Desirable Woman, based on a novel by Mitchell Wilson entitled None So Blind. Joan Bennett was so hot, box office-wise, RKO let her choose the director. She jumped at the chance to work with her friend, Jean Renoir. The French auteur, son of renowned Impressionist painter Pierre-Auguste Renoir, had arrived in America 6 years earlier, opting to continue his career in Hollywood once the Nazis occupied France. Renoir already had a long career in silent pictures when, during the 1930s, he established himself as France's preeminent film artist. Two of his masterworks, 1937's Grande Illusion and The Rules of the Game from 1939, would become staples on every critic's list of the greatest movies ever made. Now a stranger in a strange land, Renoir struggled to adapt to Hollywood production methods, which didn't favor the spontaneity and improvisation that he preferred. His Hollywood films, Swamp Water, This Land Is Mine, The Southerner, and Diary of a Chambermaid, were all fine, well-crafted works, but they lacked the inspiration, elan, and subtle grace of Renoir's finest. For Desirable Woman, RKO rolled out the red carpet for the esteemed Frenchman. Charles Corner, the studio's production chief, admired the director's work and not only promised him carte blanche during production, he personally helped Renoir refashion the story, along with writer Frank Davis, into the kind of unique film Renoir was longing to make. They paired the story to a minimalist three-person drama set on a desolate stretch of California coastline. A shell-shocked sailor lusts after the sexy and flirtatious wife of a once famous painter, living out his days in isolation after an accident has left him blind. From this simple premise, Renoir intended to dive in and explore the darkest corners of the human psyche: lust, jealousy, trauma, self-loathing, solitude, all those things that spell big box office in Hollywood. Joan Bennett, who was fluent in French, already was close pals with Renoir. Now, coincidentally, her latest film, Scarlet Street, was a remake of his 1931 classic, La Chienne. For the sailor, Renoir cast an actor who'd appeared mostly in B films, which Renoir greatly admired. Robert Ryan had not yet played his breakout role in RKO's Crossfire. That had come next. Renoir sensed that Ryan could be intimidating and vulnerable, important for the role he plays here. Charles Bickford, always the first actor called when a character was described as grizzled and surly, was cast as Bennett's artist husband. Renoir started production with the highest of hopes, especially after Corner granted his wish to have Val Lewton act as producer. Renoir cherished Lewton's B horror movies for having a surplus of cinematic savvy on the stingiest of budgets. But early on, Lewton left the project, leaving Renoir to essentially be his own producer. At first, it was bliss for the quiet and careful director. Shooting both on location and in the studio went spectacularly well, and Renoir indulged this unexpected freedom to improvise with an eager cast. In a note to friends, he said the atmosphere on set was so pleasant and the actors and crew so efficient that he regretted the adventure ever having to end. He adored Joan Bennett, who was nothing like the vixen she played on screen. Between takes, she'd sit around knitting and cracking jokes about the false eyelashes and special teeth she used to look more alluring. Renoir also became close with Robert Ryan and his wife, Jessica Cadwallader. He'd write the introduction for Cadwallader's book, City of Angels, which Renoir helped get published in Europe. But not long into production, studio boss Charles Corner died, a victim of leukemia at only 49. His death seemed a bad omen, Renoir said later, adding, "I was not mistaken." Now, had Charles Corner not died, Renoir believed he would have made 20 more films for RKO. To Renoir, Corner was a man who knew the business and the exploitation of cinema, but at the same time conceded that one must experiment. Well, the interim regime that took charge of RKO, led by corporate president Peter Rathbun, had no use for experiments. Corner's death left Renoir with no champion at the studio. The executives in charge were baffled by what the director eventually delivered, a slow-burning mood piece filled with existential dread and subtle but startling eroticism. Bewildered by it, they decided, in classic Hollywood fashion, to hold a preview. And on an early August day in 1946, Jean Renoir, France's greatest filmmaker, found himself in a theater in Santa Barbara, surrounded by high school and college kids who'd been invited to pass judgment on the new provocatively titled RKO picture, Desirable Woman. This crowd was not looking for a meditation on loneliness and loss. Renoir described the screening as if someone was stabbing him with knives all over his body. As he wrote to his friends in France, it was catastrophique. If Jean Renoir had the character of Orson Welles, he'd have dropped the whole thing flat and moved on. But Renoir was a gentle and sensitive man who took full responsibility for the film and the disastrous preview that continued to haunt him. He spent 6 months reshooting sections of the picture and re-editing most of it, driving himself crazy in the process. The movie ended up even more elliptical and oblique. The studio finally washed their hands of it. At least it was shorter. Once more than an hour and a half, the final cut ran 71 minutes. Renoir sadly noted that, at best, he may have been attempting something ahead of its time. Now, with more than 70 additional years of cinema history under our collective belt, TCM viewers can make up their own mind about what remains. As maimed as it is, I find the movie mesmerizing. It's a ghost story about living ghosts, 3 dead souls haunted by the past, angrily looking for reasons to keep on living. Released, finally, in the summer of 1947, with a new title aimed at cashing in on Bennett's The Woman in the Window, here is The Woman on the Beach.